Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And with this one, I will be covering the Restoration Druid. Should you or should you not main this specialization moving into Dragonflight, as this is going to be the biggest decision that you make when it comes to a World of Warcraft expansion. You definitely want to consider all of your options, both competitive play as well as personal play style and the fun factor of the specialization, possibly difficulty level as well, something that you want to take into consideration. And if all of this sounds appealing to you and you want to be able to make the best decision for yourself, then do consider subscribing to the channel, as I will be producing content like this for every specialization leading up into Dragonflight, covering all of their strengths and weaknesses and how many options you are going to really have. So as a main Restoration Druid, having gotten rank 1 on this specialization throughout multiple spans of time of the game in PvP, I definitely hold it near and dear to my heart. In this expansion moving forward to Dragonflight, you're basically carrying forward all of the things that made it powerful in Shadowlands, Cenarian Ward, extending that Cenarian Ward, as well as gaining access to some new abilities such as Nature's Vigil, and this specific one that is escaping the name for me at the moment, but you can see at the top of my screen here, this little bear icon. Basically, all of your healing, your effective healing, accumulates into damage on your next Moonfire, and you can track this and find a target and blast out like a 50,000 Moonfire hit on top of this Nature's Vigil, providing you a lot of sustained damage. So you're getting a lot of damage added to your kit that you previously had lost. You still got all the great standards of cycloning targets, getting crowd control into healers, then finding moments to do damage once you found the crowd control, utilizing those Moonfires that I was talking about, right as in this instance. You still have powerful healing in bear form, coupling the adaptive swarm with your frenzied regeneration for recovery. I do consider Resto Druid to be a very new player friendly healer. It would be my #1 recommended healer if you're thinking about transitioning into the role. The main objective as a new Restoration Druid is to, again, keep Cenarian Ward up on the target that you think's the priority one or is getting focused. And then often you'll want to split some powerful heal over time effects. In this expansion, Dragonflight, Life Bloom is going to be your most powerful heal over time effect. So you can split Life Bloom onto a secondary target and Cenarian onto a main target. This way, enemies will often switch off of Cenarian Ward and immediately be met by your Life Bloom. And this Life Bloom is really going to block a huge amount of damage that your opponents are going to be able to dish out. But Resto Druid is all about picking your moment, staying in the back line, staying safe, and only moving forward when you know that you can safely get crowd control into the enemy team. Otherwise, you're going to be heavily punished. So in this instance, we're keeping Life Bloom here up onto our Devastation Evoker, couple of Rejuvenations here, and Cenarian Ward onto our Hunter. We can extend that Cenarian with Swiftmend and Ironbark our Life Bloom onto the Evoker. This way that both of my teammates are basically effectively immune to damage during this time. We can also couple Innervate to make all of our spells free. Innervate's going to be a very important component when utilized with other spells like Overgrowth. You almost always want to combo those together. Overgrowth is just going to allow you to immediately apply all of your heal over time effects to a target. This is great for recovery as you come out of crowd control, or to preempt out crowd control. And I do recommend it, as you can see it here, Innervate Overgrowth, maxing out all of the heal over time effects onto my Evoker. I chose to run Instant Wild Growth with this build specifically just to see how it would go, see how much healing it could do. And you can see still splitting the Cenarian Ward onto my Hunter, Life Bloom onto my Evoker, then jumping in when my heal over time effects are secured to get crowd control, bashing the enemy healer, landing a Freezing Trap. Fortunately, we ended up breaking the Freezing Trap, so going for the Cyclone there from my part actually probably would have been the right decision. You're still carrying over some Shadowlands effects like you can see here with the triple Swiftmend, 3 Swiftmends in a row. You're going to activate a Tree of Life, and this Tree of Life provides you a lot of utility. You can root enemies. You can see there I tried rooting the enemy priest so they couldn't run away, so I could try and cast a Cyclone. There's a lot of cool utility that you can still use there. We're still carrying forward the Tranquility Divine Shield effect through Honor talents and reducing its cooldown through our main talent, so we still have a really well-rounded and powerful kit. Definitely the most well-rounded of any healer, and with Nature's Vigil and this Moonfire talent, you're able to pump out a lot of damage as well. So we push in, we get a Cyclone onto the enemy healer. Honestly, at this point, using Nature's Vigil when the enemy is CC'd would be a great idea. We charge forward with our bear utility with Wild Charge, able to root an enemy target, get an aspect of the turtle, and you can see that if you're min-maxing pretty much every global cooldown, you're going to find something always exciting and effective to do on this specialization. So while it's still noob friendly, you can kind of sit in the back, keep your heal over time effects up on a target, play safe and get comfortable with this class while you don't know what's going on. You're still going to have room to grow and expand into complexity, pushing in and getting aggressive, landing stuns onto healers, finding crowd control chains, switching cyclones around on low targets to prevent heals and recovery. And really, that's what I like about the spec. Like, this definitely meets kind of like the Blizzard gold standard of like easy to pick up but difficult to master. It's kind of one of their staple phrases. I would have to say that Resto Druid is one of the perfect examples of that for the aforementioned reasons. So if you are going to pick up this specialization and you're completely fresh to it, just stick to the back, stay 40 yards away, keep your heal over time effects, try this split heal over time effect strat, because a lot of enemies will switch off that. That's going to be one common thing that you're going to notice as a weakness as a Resto Druid if you've never played it, is that enemies, skilled enemies will switch targets. Unskilled ones, you're going to be pretty happy because they're just going to tunnel vision into all your biggest hots and you're chilling, like you're having a good time. So this is a healer that's also really diverse in terms of classes that it can play with. It can play melee cleaves, it can play with ranged classes, ranged and melee together. So if you're going into ranked solo queue, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to be doing, I think that this healer is going to be definitely a strong one. We're still waiting to see for some more tuning passes as to whether or not it'll be the best one. Now, do consider that there are other classes like Affliction Warlock that are really powerful, and Resto Druid has historically been like the best healer for an Affliction Warlock, just because Warlocks want to move around the map with their portals, and you can still heal them with your heal over time effects even if they're going across the map and you can't keep up with them. So you've got really good synergies with a lot of the classes that are looking really powerful right now, just speaking from a competitive standpoint. Now, do note that that can change. Here, I love doing stuff like this, cycloning an enemy target at low health, stopping a big heal, and then switching that cyclone over to the healer, then utilizing that Moonfire talent to get our Moonfires up. Want to be careful when you push in skilled enemies, they're going to punish you, so have some sort of emergency cooldown, be ready to Tranquility when you make a push, get a Cenarian Ward up, get an Overgrowth out. So that way you can recover once you've made that aggressive push and stance onto your opponents, so that you're not going to fall too far behind. You still do obviously have Nature's Swiftness to pick up. Unfortunately for Resto Druid, a lot of its talents towards the right side of the wing are focused around Wild Growth, which are going to be really desirable in large group content, so things like rated battlegrounds and PvP. But in Arena, you're not so much going to be playing these wild growth talents, I can imagine. So you're pretty much restricted into this Life Bloom build with a little bit of like, do you want to focus on Reju versus Life Bloom versus a little bit of Burst? There's a couple of talents that I can move around towards that side. But at the same time, that the pros of that are that you're probably not going to have 50 billion loadouts, at least with the Resto side of the tree. The Druid side of the tree, I could still see you having quite a few builds. I've seen some Druids utilizing the new Skull Bash talent. Myself personally wasn't very excited about it initially. I was like, is that really the biggest thing we're going to get, Skull Bash? But now, having seen a couple Druids do it, it can be really annoying when an enemy walks up to you expecting to cast like a Fear, and you go cat form and you can just Skull Bash them on cast and put them into a really weird position that they've never been put in a long time against a Resto Druid. So again, it's this class where you can kind of start fresh on it, get your feet wet, kind of just sit back, heal, get good with it. You can do really well just with that alone, with the basics, and then advance into more complexity, the shape-shifting forms, the utility, the damage, and everything else with a wide range. So it's looking like a solid competitive healer, has a lot of options, great new player friendly, great synergies with other classes, good mix of damage and healing at the moment. I enjoyed my time on it as I've been experimenting with the classes so far. So I would definitely recommend it as a main if it's something that you're curious about trying. If you're already an existing Resto Druid, it's basically the same stuff that you're expecting from Shadowlands with more damage and more options to expand into kind of utility like interrupts and things like that. So if you liked that, then you're going to really like this version of it as well. But if you didn't, maybe you're getting bored of that type of playstyle for Resto Druid, you may want to check out another healer, and I'll be covering all of them. I've already looked at Evoker at the start of this, and you can see the dangers of pushing forward and not having those heal of time effects here. You'll get punished. So sitting back, making sure those hots up are definitely going to be an important tactic for your success should you decide to main this specialization, which I would definitely recommend at this time. Anyways, thank you very much for watching the video. If you want to stay up to date with news, class changes, content like this, so you know what's going on with the next expansion, you're making the best decision for yourself, then do hit the subscribe button, and I greatly appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. Is this appealing to you? Are you going to be checking out the Restoration Druid, or what class is most appealing to you? What class do you want me to cover? That type of deal, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm definitely trying to aim this content to be the most beneficial for all of you out there. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will catch you in the next one.